Today on Commander Replay, we check out this Patreon-submitted Godzilla deck. Can anyone stop Zilortha's power trip? Find out next on Commander Replay. The 2020 GoFundMe is active. If you want to do one-on-one deck reviews with me, or get one of your decks played on video, be sure to check out the link in the description below. Welcome back, everyone. Playing some Godzilla King of Monsters today, Godzilla's Power Trip, aka Zilortha Strength Incarnate. Take a look at this opening hand. It's a one-lander. Yeah, let's mulligan that. Let us mulligan that. Into 3 lands, Bonds of Morality. Yeah, that seems okay. I think we can make that work. Let's keep. We draw into a land on our first turn. That's okay. Maybe not the most exciting, but let's get the Evolving Wilds in. Crack the Evolving Wilds. Got plenty of red mana. I think we'll go for some green right here. I think the deck is more green heavy than it is red heavy, so we'll get that, and then that sets us up for the Gruul Turf at some point, because then we can bounce a land that won't come back into play tap. So let's take a look at Godzilla, aka Zilortha. It's 2 in Gruul for a 7/3. It's got trample, and this next ability is worded very strangely, and I have to read it multiple times every time I look at it. Lethal damage dealt to creatures you control is determined by their power rather than their toughness. Essentially the reverse of Doran the Siege Tower. But if Godzilla were to take damage, it would take 7 damage to kill it, because lethal damage is determined by the power, not the toughness. Reading the card explains the card. But I will say that I feel like they could have worded that ability differently to be slightly less confusing. The easier thing I think that they could have done is just say, creature's toughness is equal to their power. So the main difference being right now is that, like, it doesn't actually change the creature's toughness, so anything that would trigger off of toughness, not that there's like a ton of cards that I can think of to do that, but there's got to be at least a couple, where in this case it doesn't actually change their toughness, so I don't know. I think that is an easier change to, like, visualize, I guess. I don't know. I find it a little bit confusing, but it's still cool nonetheless, and I'm excited to take a look at it today, so we'll see what happens. There's a Ground Seal. When it enters battlefield, draw a card. Cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. I think I'm feeling that. Also, that should... Oh, that cost 2. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, that being the case, let's play a mountain. Let's get this Ground Seal into play. And at some point here, we can think about getting this Gruul Turf in and not having to discard the hand size, which will be good things, so yeah. Oh, does this one draw a card? Okay, never mind. Never mind. Actually, no, we can still... we'll see what happens next turn. We will see what happens. Nope, we draw a Soul Ring. That'll help with getting things out of our hand. So let's take a look at what our opponents are playing today. First up, we've got Kithron piloting Mangara the Diplomat. Yeah, card that I'm excited to check out. Haven't had a chance to play with this yet. 4 mana, 2/4. It's got lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you or a planeswalker you control, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. It's the white legendary creature that says, draw cards. Yeah. Super excited. I need to get like 12 copies of these for all my paper decks. It's a mythic, which I'm not super excited about. I can't imagine it's going to be too cheap, because I'm sure every other person with a white deck is saying, I need 12 of these, or at least, you know, I need X of these, where X is the number of white decks I own. So yeah, super interesting commander, super interesting card. Hope we get a good look at it today. There's an Emerald Medallion for our opponent. By the way, a Helm of Awakening in for the Mangara last turn. At some point they got a Divining Top in. I don't know if that was last turn or the previous turn, but yeah, Helm of Awakening's pretty crazy. Spells cost 1 less to cast, and that applies to each player, so that's going to speed the game up a touch. That does allow Gargos to play Emerald Medallion and Rampant Growth all in the same turn, and so they're going to get a little bit of ramp going, but I feel decent with the Soul Ring in hand. Get that going. Next up, we have Mockfire piloting Gargos Vicious Watcher. Yeah, Gargos is pretty good. It's the Hydra commander. Hydras cost 4 less, and when it becomes the target of a spell, Gargos fights up to 1 creature you don't control. It's pretty nasty. It's pretty nasty. Also, it's a 6 mana 8/7 with Vigilance, so if all that stuff doesn't get you, it's also just big. So yeah, Gargos pretty good. And Mock did ask before the game, is Gargos a little too strong? I'm like, oh, maybe. Our deck seems decent. I did take a look at it, and it seems like we had a lot of our bases covered. We'll see what happens as we get going, but it looked like a pretty tight looking package. You know, I'm seeing things like Ground Seal in here, which is good against graveyard decks, and if you're running this, like, this isn't necessarily the first thing you run into a deck when you think about interaction. I find that people tend to add graveyard interaction a little bit later as metas get stronger and stuff like that. So the fact that this is in here tells me that the deck's creator self has at least thought about what cards they're running for interaction in their deck at least a little bit. So I feel pretty confident that we should have a reasonable chance against the Gargos. Anyway, so Nate lays down some stuff. He's got himself a Soul Ring, a Dawn of Hope, and a Well of Lost Dreams. All good stuff. Yeah, Helm of Awakening really getting everyone going right here. So, brings back to our turn. We draw a Terramorphic Expanse. Let's play the old Soul Ring for free. We can get our Commander right here. Doesn't seem awful. So, Commander into play. If we played a land, that would give us 1. Helm of Awakening gives us 2. We could get the Bonds of Morality. That's the thing that we could do. Let's start thinking about the tap lands at some point. Do we want that, or do we just want to go on the tap land? I mean, next turn, let's get the Gruul Turf going. Actually, does Helm stick? Let's get the tap land going right here. We've got a couple of them in hand, so, like, they're going to be a little bit awkward. Let's start working through that now where it's not as critical. There aren't a million things on board, and, like, we don't need to do tons and tons of things yet, so... I think it's going to be better in the long run to start working on the tap lands now, instead of, like, Bonds of Morality is cool, but it's just kind of like a redraw, and we don't, like, badly need this effect just yet. So right now, Galta's mana cost with all of the cost reduction in play, including our creature, is going to be a cost reduction of 8, which means it'll cost 4 mana to get into play. It's pretty good. Mangara coming into play. Yeah, I see what's happening now. You have a Helm of Awakening in play, people are going to be playing 2 spells a turn much, much easier. So triggering the draw and Mangara, but there's some cost to that. That does speed people's decks up a lot. So is that worth it? I'm not sure. Unless they've got some way that they can abuse it themselves, which they might. But I probably wouldn't run Helm of Awakening just to incentivize the card draw. People will naturally try to play 2 spells a turn anyway, like that's what most decks are trying to set up. You know, we see an Emerald Medallion out of Mockfire from a few turns ago that's really good. Cost reduction's really good for setting up multiple spells a turn. They do lay down their Gargos. Yep, there it is. So we might be on the Whisper Silk Cloak just so our Godzilla does not get fighted to death. Foughten? Foughted. Fitten. Here's a Star Storm. Removal is good. Nate does the worst of all things and plays a land and leaves up all his mana, so I'm just not going to go in his direction. Yeah, so I think I'm on the Whisper Silk Cloak right here. Pay the 2. Equip it. All right, we are equipped. Sweet. We've got an unblockable Shrouded 7/3. Next, now we can get the Bonds of Morality into play. So that'll be 1 green. Yep, that's going to trigger the Mangara. Yep, there that is. Have yourself some card draw. Long-awaited white card draw. There's an Anax Hardened in the Forge. It's pretty sweet. A little bit of board wipe protection right there. Let's get the... We have a lot of lands in hand, so I think I'm actually going to save the cycle land for now. We may actually need to cycle that. So let's get the Terramorphic Expanse into play. Give that the old crack. Again, trying to work around the tap lands just so they don't bite us when we really need our mana to be untapped. So far, not too big of an issue. Just have to play smart about what we're doing. We've got a lot of double red in hand. Let's get another mountain. So I think we have to do... yeah, it's a 7/3. Yeah, I don't think. Maybe they block with Gargos. Let's see. I doubt it. Gargos is, like, way too powerful of an engine to... Oh, wait, it's unblockable. Whew! Oh, man. Thought I just made a boo-boo. Forgot that Whisper Silk makes it unblockable. Haven't played with a Whisper Silk Cloak in a long time. Been a minute. Strong card usually gets shot the second it sees play, and rightfully so. Unblockable is really good. Alhammaret's Archive coming in for the Mangara. Yeah, going in on the white card draw. We'll draw 2 every time Mangara triggers now. Lifecrafter's Bestiary for the Gargos. Yep. Are we starting the Hydra Parade? Hydra number 1. It's a Hydra Omnivore. Yep. Lifecrafters will trigger. Mangara will trigger. How much mana can we pump into a Starstorm at this moment? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on our turn, so X6. Not big enough to deal with the Omnivore. Omnivore is really large. Also does damage at an alarming rate. When it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. It's really strong. Yep, here comes a Gargos back at us. Thought something like this could happen. Nate's going to use Dawn of Hope to make a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. Got us. Totally expecting like an utter end or something like that. But I guess it's still early in the game for that. So we're going to take this Gargos hit for 8. Woof. May need to think about some blocking here. Could use Anax. Could... What we say? X6 on the Starstorm. We'll have 8 total mana. Eek. Does also... No, that is just each creature. That one doesn't burn life totals. Need to catch a Mana Crypt off the top. I don't know if we have one in this deck. I think this might be based off a paper deck. Yeah, no Mana Crypt. We'll assume based off a paper deck, because Mana Crypts are expensive. Although, cheaper than they used to be, but still expensive. That's an Elspeth. There's the art, finally showing up. I think we're going to see all creatures 4 power or greater get destroyed right here. Yep. This is good. This is good. I like this. Gargos is really strong. We're going to return our command to the command zone. The Magic Online update has finally showed up for the commander change. Is very nice. For those not in the know, the rules committee changed the death rule for commanders so that when a commander dies now, you now get a dies trigger, relevant for things like Blood Artist and similar cards that say die on them. Skull Clamp is another one. So essentially the way it works now is it goes to the graveyard first and then you send it to the command zone is I think probably the simplest way to explain it. They finally updated Magic Online, so it gives you the choice as it goes to the graveyard instead of the whole you have to change the zone before it happens, because that was truly terrible and led to misplays all of the time. Anyway, that brings us back to our turn. We draw a Game Trail. We can actually get that in on tap, so I think I might do that. Let's play the Game Trail, reveal a mountain, recast our commander, and that's about all we can do this turn. Passed like that. Didn't finish our opponents, by the way. Our final opponent is Vermilion Nintendo, aka Nate, piloting his new deck, Regna the Redeemed and Krav the Redeemer. I think he's got the enchantment combo in this deck with the one that makes you lose life and the one that makes you gain life. Sanguine Bond and what's the other one? Exquisite Blood. So we'll want to be careful of that. If we run our way into a Croson Grip or similar type enchantment removal, we'll probably want to hold on to that for a bit. How about that? The Mangara player's got 9 cards in hand, more than everyone else. It is a new day for Mono White with Mangara. Divining Top, oh, hey now. That's what they did. So at the end step, they drew with the Divining Top, which gives them 2 off of the archive. So that's a pretty good little setup right there. Darksteel Plate, yep. Equips the Darksteel Plate, sure. Mangara are going to swing into the Elspeth. In all likelihood, I think they're going to block with this token. Yep, blocks with the token. Token's got lifelink, so they'll gain 1. But sometimes you gotta eat a token. Oh man, Elspeth's on 1 loyalty. Would I really use a Godzilla attack on that? Oh man, that's so much commander damage to be given up. So token goes down, Nate gains some life, but does not have the mana for the Dawn of Hope. Does have the mana for the Well of Lost Dreams, so they can get 1 back right here. Yep, and they do that. You know what, I'm already having this feeling like this is going to be a grindy game. The white deck is drawing. White decks have removal. The white-black deck is drawing, and white-black decks have removal. Plus, Krav and Regna are an incredible engine in the late game. So, probably time to turn our attention away from the Gargos and start looking at some other things. I'm feeling maybe a little bit of haste in this deck might be good. You have these big stompy things. Giving big stompy things haste so you can use them right away. Always a good idea. Let's take a peek at the deck list real quick. Overall, I like the Mana Curve. Mana Curve looks pretty good. Something similar to how I would build a deck. As far as mass haste, not seeing a lot in the way of haste. We got a Rhythm of the Wild. Oop, fires the Yamavaya. Okay. So there are some haste. So a couple haste things. I'd probably update the lands. I love Hainware Battlements and Flamekid Village. Put them in like every deck that has red. So I've also got Swiftfoot Boots. Yeah, okay, so reasonable. Certainly could add Lightning Greaves also, but they get expensive depending on whenever the last time they've been reprinted is. So I've seen them go up to, I think, about $7 at points, and they usually get reprinted in a lot of the Commander products, so they'll come down after that. But yeah, they get more expensive than you want them to be at certain points in the year. I'm like, ooh, hey, I'm out of Lightning Greaves, $7. I don't feel like trading $7 worth of stuff to get myself some boots. Yep. Gargos back to play. Also, yep. Nate's got some life gain stuff going on, so like I've been thinking about it. As long as he doesn't do the passes all his mana open thing again, probably going to suit up Godzilla and just swing into his face, get the commander damage going on him. He's going to gain life, so like getting there with normal... I think commander damage is probably our best bet against them. Yep, there's a Soul Warden right on time. And, ooh, and that Cathar's Crusade. Nice. Did that in reverse order, I think. Oh, I see what he's doing. Yeah, he still could have went Cathar's first, then Soul Warden, and then he's going to plus the Elspeth. Well, it's all pretty good. It's all pretty good. What's the plus on Elspeth? It's +1, so it's going to be a second before Elspeth can minus again. Makes 3 tokens. This will make the team huge. This isn't, like, unexpected, but I noticed that our deck is so far not, like, super well suited to blocking, but that's just kind of a reality of being a red deck. You're so incentivized to attack that blocking sort of gets forgotten. So, yep, here we go. Soul Warden, Cathar's Crusade, pretty good. It's going to trigger the Dawn of Hope and the Well of Lost Dreams. He can draw a little bit if he wants to. Oh, by the way, let's see. Where is it? Bonds of Morality removes Hexproof and Indestructible from our opponent's stuff. This Mangara has a Darksteel plate on it, is currently indestructible. Could be relevant. Triggers flying off left and right for Nate. Every time he gains life, so that Soul Warden going to be a little bit of a nuisance. Just trying to click through all the triggers. And he is a team of 4/4s. That's something. That is a something. Brings it back to our turn. There's a Spite Bellows. Not the cheapest card to play, so you can use it as a removal spell. I've used this thing in the past, gotten away from it a little bit more recently, but who knows? Maybe I should just start playing it again. Spot removal, I think, is kind of come back into fashion a bit. For a while, it was board wipes everything, but the meta has changed a little bit with, commanders being such strong value engines now that you really just need to get rid of them quickly. Spite Bellows, cool card. And, in the past, I've used, like, Light and Shadow. You start bringing it back, and then you're in a pretty good place. Anyway, what are we doing this turn? So definitely get the Whisper Silk on Godzilla. Do we have to just eat Elspeth? What else can kill the Elspeth? We could Starstorm somewhere during Mockfire's turn. Blah, we gotta eat the Elspeth. Don't love this. Oh, it's such a waste of so much commander damage. Do we go for Anax and Galta this turn? Probably. Not super well protected against a board wipe should that happen. Can we go Anax Spite Bellows instead? I kind of want to hold this Galta. I'm worried about what our opponents have, so like... We haven't drawn particularly well this game, so until we start drawing a little bit more, I don't want to just like lay our big piece down there with 2 white decks at the table. It's kind of scary, so yeah, okay. Play a Mountain. I think we're going to be 1 short on the Spite Bellows and the Anax, so maybe we just go Spite Bellows. And we'll leave up Ground Seal in case of a board wipe. Spite Bellows is actually good enough to keep the Gargos from coming our way, though. So I like that. Triggers the Soul Warden. Triggers Dawn of Hope, Well of Lost Dreams. Opponent's going to draw at the top again. Yep, nothing for that. That's a Grand Abolisher for opponent. Those are pretty good. Can't cast spells or activate abilities during their turn. Top back to play. Oh, that's a Smothering Tithe. Oh, no. Yeah, the white deck's got stuff going on. One of the things I forgot about Spite Bellows, because I haven't played with it in a long time, is that it does create incentive for people to go elsewhere much of the time. So, like, this Gargos doesn't want to come our way. Now, they could fight the Spite Bellows, and that would be, like, not great for us. But, until they get rid of it, yeah, no one really wants to attack your way. So, if you're in a combat meta, people like their creatures. Spite Bellows is certainly an interesting card. Is it the best card ever? No, but it, it's all about creating incentive, and up to this point, we didn't have a lot of incentive for opponents not to attack us. Spite Bellows at least creates some of that. And, it's a thing I've talked about a bunch with, like, Solemn Simulacrum creates incentive for people to not attack you because they don't want to give you that card draw. Thaumatic Compass does the same sort of thing where, it flips over, then, there's just no incentive to swing into you because they lose the damage, so... Creating incentives for people not to attack you does create incentive for them to attack elsewhere. That's always a good thing. Cards... Oh, God. Speaking of crazy cards, here's a great henge, but other card that's, like, surprisingly good is Bloodthirsty Blade. There's some things on board. Someone played an Austere Command, I wouldn't really be opposed. Here comes the Gargos back to play. Triggers the Life Crafters, triggers the Mangara. Excuse me, that's a Voracious Hydra. Triggers the Smothering Tithe. Draws with the Life Crafters. Gonna draw with the, oh man, there's so many triggered abilities happening in this game. I think we're just gonna get, like, out-triggered ability. Outvalued. So Soul Warden triggers, Great Henge triggers, Voracious Hydra triggers. They get to choose between doubling the number of counters on the Hydra or have it fight a creature they don't control. There are some creatures worth fighting. Can have the Hydra fight the Soul Warden. I'm down for that. Soul Warden doing a lot of things over there. Great Henge gets a card draw. Triggers a Smothering Tithe. There's a Mosswart Bridge. Yep. Gargos going to swing into the Mangara. Yep. If they block, I would Ground Seal. Sorry, not Ground Seal. Bonds of Mortality. Have I been saying morality? It's mortality. Opponent seems to have not forgotten about the Bonds of Mortality. Does not block, takes the 8 commander damage. All about that. Though I wouldn't mind doing that just to get them one time and watch their thing go down. Smothering Tithe continuing to trigger. Nate's going to swing into the Mangara. Oh, this seems like a board wipe play. See someone tapping out when you feel like they should be holding blockers. Means the board wipe's probably coming. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to just, go straight for Galta. Mangara draws up to 10 cards in hand. They have no max hand size off of something. Or do they? No, maybe they just, maybe they drew cards after the fact. Okay, nope. So they still have a max hand size, just that, they're up to 10. They've been drawing like crazy. Opponent gonna block with the Mangara. Yep, let's, activate the old bonds right here. Beep. Mangara goes down. Opponent goes to 32 off the attack. These have lifelink? No lifelink on those. Kaya's Wrath. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures destroyed this way. Yep, there it is. The old board wipe. Spite Bellows triggers with no target. Yeah, it's a little disappointing. Back to the command zone. Well of Lost Dreams. Dawn of Hope trigger. Draws a bunch. Triggers a Smothering Tithe. Ooh, this is bad. This is a bad. Opponent's going to despark on the Great Henge. Down for that. 1 value engine getting trimmed back a little bit. And Kithron going to Enlighten Tutor. Put something on top. The Great Henge is a seriously crazy card, though. So, definitely easy to get shot, but there's some other crazy things on board, too. Alhamret's, Smothering Tithe, all good stuff. Helm of Awakening, not really something you want to stick around. Cathar's, Well of Lost Dreams, all good stuff. Dawn of Hope is decent, but less threatening than most of the things I just named. So, yeah. There's a Vivian. You can cast creature spells as though they had flash. That's pretty good, actually. I think that's going to be what the doctor ordered in this moment. Not paying for the Smothering Tithe. Just give him all the treasures. Why not? What are we doing? I'd love to get our commander back, but I think our commander's probably pretty expensive now. It's going to be 8 after the cost reduction. How much do we actually have? We have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll have 9 total mana, so it is not going to be our commander and Vivian this turn. I think Vivian is too good to not get into play, so let's do that. Trying to think about the best way to do this, just from a mana consumption standpoint. Yeah, okay, let's go. We'll use the Soul Ring right here, and then we might cycle the Sheltered Thicket. Might be time to do that. So what are our choices? We can plus it. Note that Vivian does not have an ultimate, so plussing right now, not doing much for us, but... So the minus is, look at the top 3 cards of our library, exile 1 face down, put the rest in the bottom in any order for as long as it remains exiled. You may look at and cast that card as long as it's a creature. So, yeah, let's do that. Get a little bit of card advantage here. That's what we've been kind of falling behind on a bit. No creatures. No creatures. Awkward. Losing a Planeswalker. It's an okay Planeswalker. Creature can't be countered. Not super relevant this game. Fighting stuff is reasonable. So I guess we just double check if it's a creature spell. So we exile Lay of the Land. We'll put the rest in the bottom. After that, let us cycle the Sheltered Thicket. We draw a Phyto Titan. Ooh, spicy. When it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of their next upkeep. That's kind of cool. Pay 2 for Smothering Tithe. Nope. And I think this is going to work out perfectly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 off of the Helm. We can flash in the Phyto Titan at the end step, and I like the sound of that. Vivian's a really good card. I feel so much better having this Vivian. Flash is like pseudo haste. It's not exactly the same, but, still gives you that ability to use things before opponents can respond at sorcery speed, which is such a big deal. Land tax trigger for opponent. Opponent getting some stuff right here. We've got Authority of the Consuls, Sphere of Safety, Soul's Attendant, Swiftfoot Boots, equip the Swiftfoot Boots, Darksteel Plate onto the Soul's Attendant. Yeah, it's pretty good. Well of Lost Dreams, so much stuff going on, so much value over there. I don't actually know how they plan to win. That's a question I have. What did they get with the Enlightened Tutor, by the way? They grabbed a Sphere of Safety. Yep. Yep, that's going to make it terrible to try and attack them. We have a Chandra's Ignition in the deck. Gives us some out against people that are Sphere of Safetied up. There's a little bit of removal as well. Opponent just going to swing into Nate, not trying to mess with our Planeswalker, probably expecting that we'll just drop a blocker, and not a lot will get done there. Opponent gets a Scry in their upkeep with the Life Crafters. That's an All Is Dust. Oh god. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter if we play our... Oh, no, we should still play our thing because it'll come back on our upkeep. Yeah, okay. I almost misclicked, but... Whew! Alright, we're going to get a chance to respond. Thought I almost misclicked through it. Well, make sure to read this thing one more time. When it dies, return to the battlefield tapped under our owner's control at the beginning of their next upkeep. Okay, yeah. So it still makes sense to get this thing into play. But some removal does need to happen. There's so many powerful artifacts and enchantments out right now. Now, I'm a little bit sad to lose our Vivian. That was like our one source of value. But getting rid of opponent's stuff is going to be pretty good right here. There's some really nasty things on the battlefield. Many of which are enchantments, so All Is Dust going to do some work right here. Still a lot of artifacts that are going to get left over, though. The Titan coming in does trigger Authority of the Consoles, and it will come in tapped as a result. Opponent's Well of Lost Dreams will trigger. Opponent says that Titan is doomed to enter the battlefield tapped. Yep. Yep, but might as well get the value from our mana. I'm not expecting anything too wild to happen, like an exile or anything, but it's a 7-2, it's cool, but it's not, like, game-breakingly good. That All Is Dust cleaned up about 10 or 11 permanents. I think 7 from opponents and like 4 from us, one of which we'll get back. Yeah, Sphere of Safety, Smothering Tithe, Authority, all that stuff needs to go. Even Soul's Attendant is like better than you give it credit for. It's a very strong 1-drop. Primordial Hydra coming in, X2. Opponent will get, I think they spent all their mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of counters on Primordial Hydra. Trample if it has 10 or more. Yep, it's pretty good. It's a nice one you can cast cheaply, since it will get bigger as time goes on. Strip Mine into play. Ooh, Demonic Tutor, you say. Soul's Attendant. Regna into play, getting part of that engine going. Knowing Nate, I feel like he may have gone for a Skull Clamp on the Regna, but it's tough to say. But I think he's also running the life combo, so you may have gone for part of that. But he's pretty low on cards, and he is a guy that likes to draw cards, so I feel like Skull Clamp could be on the menu. Regna, Well of Lost Dreams will trigger. Yeah, especially with Soul's Attendant. He's going to gain life. Yeah, it's all good stuff. Maybe he doesn't need the card draw as much with Well of Lost Dreams, but I don't know. Regna's going to trigger at the end step. Soul's Attendant triggers 2 more times. Pretty good. Which continues to trigger the Well of Lost Dreams. So many triggers. Brings us back to our turn. Our Phyto Titan's going to come back to play tapped. Triggers the Soul's Attendant. Triggers the Well of Lost Dreams. There's a Farseek. A little late on the Farseek. Can we afford our commander? Somehow the Phyto Titan came in untapped. That's spicy. That just looks like a bug. Recast our commander. Soul's Attendant. Well of Lost Dreams. Not enough to equip the Whisper Silk, so might as well get the Farseek going. We'll get a Cinderglade. And pass like that. Regna continuing to trigger. Oy. Probably going to have to think about the Starstorm next turn. If Krav comes into play, it's going to be a real issue. Divining Top? Yeah, they'll draw 2 off that. Still a bunch of artifacts in play. Card that I really like for Gruul decks is Subterranean Tremors. Blows up creatures and artifacts, and especially in a deck like this where Zilortha is essentially going to give your creatures generally high toughness, sort of. You can make it fairly one-sided, so that's a thing that I think I would look at in this deck, and we'll kind of talk about some changes that can be made, but also keeping in mind that, like, we're just facing 2 control-heavy decks right now. We got 2 white decks at the table, and board wipes are a part of white's game plan. That's, like, a thing that it does really well, so... Ooh, Oath of Lieges. Hope we get some Oath of Lieges triggers. I haven't counted the lands yet. We're on 7. Green opponent's on 8. I'm all about getting some extra lands. Mangara back to play, puts the Darksteel plate on it. This time we don't have the Bonds of Mortality to remove the Indestructible, so it's probably going to be sticking around a little bit longer. More Regna action. Got an army of 1/1s over there. Glad the Cathar's Crusade is down. That would be a real problem. Given that set of circumstances, you'd probably have just about board-killing power. If Cathar's Crusade was still in play, everything would have, what, +6/+6? More or less. I mean, the timing matters a little bit, but the things that were in play would have +6/+6, and everything else one less after that. Primordial Hydra, gonna double itself. Lifecrafter's Scry. Here comes Gargos back to play. Yep. Lifecrafter's Trigger. Pays the draw. Well, I've lost dreams. Soul's Attendant. If Nate just slams like an Elishnorn, it's gonna be a real thing. Yep. Regna, Soul's Attendant. Well, I've lost dreams. Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna have to be Starstorm on our turn. Oath of Legious Trigger. Yep, here comes Krav. Krav is really good when you have a ton of tokens out. These two are a really powerful duo. Their only problem is it's a lot of mana to get them both going. But you get to turn 8 like this. Nate's made all of his land drops. Got a teeny bit of help on the Oath of Lieges, but, you know, just making all of his land drops, staying on top of things, has a Soul Ring out. Totally doable when you're talking about turn 8. You know, if you're trying to go like a turn 6 meta, maybe a little tougher, but, you know, in this, in like a mid-power setting, they are very good. You don't want to go late against these two. They can just grind value for days. That's an attrition. Ooh. Don't love that. Don't love that at all. He's only got 2 black mana up, and, you know, our stuff is worth shooting, the Hydras are worth shooting. I mean, we're going to have to try and get the Whisper Silk Cloak on Godzilla. Regna into the Mangara opponent. More Regna triggers. Yep. Well, I've lost dreams. Tap the black mana. Taps a white mana. Draws a card. Oath of Legious trigger. Choose a green player. Let's get a mountain. Still 2 double red in our hand. We draw Prowling Serpapod. The spell can't be countered. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Interesting. Try and get the Whisper Silk Cloak on the Godzilla. I'm not entirely hopeful that this is gonna make it. It is not. Yeah, he's gonna attrition that. Ugh. Problem is he still has a black mana, so he can still sacrifice everything in response to the Starstorm, so we're gonna have to wait on that. Helm of Awakening's still in play. Zilortha goes down again. Getting really expensive. Put the Whisper Silk on the Phyto Titan. Let's that one go. Yeah, and then I think we're gonna Starstorm as soon as Nate tries to activate Krav, or whenever he taps himself out of black mana. He's at 61, so we gotta attack him. Can't be blocked, so that's good news. Down to 54. And we'll pass like that. Sit on the Starstorm. Oath of Legious trigger. Activates the top. 9 cards in hand. This will put him to, what, 11? So, Kithron just digging for answers. Up to 12 cards in hand. Replays the Divining Top. Yep. Wayfarer's Bauble. Also, the Divining Top is free. Helm of Awakening still here. Cracks the Bauble. Soul Warden. Oh, we got 2 Soul Warden Well of Lost Dreams in play. Plus, he's got the Alhameret, so even X1 is going to draw him 2. Speaker of the Heavens, it's a 1/1 Vigilance lifelink. Create a 4/4 flyer. Only activate this if you have 7 more life than your starting life total. And when you can cast a sorcery, so... they've got the Soul Warden with Regna in play. They'll gain that life back pretty quickly, but still a little ways to go before they can activate that. Also, you know, Starstorm is going to be a thing here at some point. Windborn Muse, yep. Be happy to blow that away with the Starstorm. Trigger all the stuff. Kithron staying at 10 cards in hand after all the card draw. Nice. Nate's going to attrition the Gargos. Doesn't want any part of that. His black mana's tapped out. I'm going to let this Hydra survive because we need damage to start happening. It's turn 9. Nate's at 56. Like, no one's really got anything to chew through that, so... letting the Hydra go to 8 actually puts some ability to put pressure on the board. Regna trigger at the end step. That'll trigger both opponents' Soul Wardens, which will also trigger both of their Well of Lost Dreams. So opponent gets Oath of Legious trigger, Life Crafters, and Primordial Hydra. I'm going to do the Starstorm in their draw step. Okay, so the Hydra's doubled in size. It is Starstorm time. Blow up everything for X6. So most of the creatures getting wiped away, still a Primordial Hydra in play, but more importantly, shutting down the Krav Regna value engine. They still have a lot of mana to their name, so, you know, I imagine at least one of those pieces will be coming back, but now at least there's a Hydra that can start chewing through some life one way or another. Mangara is indestructible, so just eats the damage due to the Darksteel plate. He's got a Soul's Majesty on the Primordial Hydra. Well, I guess that's the cost of leaving that alive, but... we need damage to happen, otherwise the more control-y combo decks are just going to grind us to death, and, you know. I think I'd rather take my chances against the creature deck. I feel like we have more With the Whisper Silk Cloak out, we can deal with them better than we can deal with combo. Lots of removal. Attrition is a problem, so, you know, pick who you want to lose to. I'll take my chances with the creature deck just about every time. Abundance for the Gargos. Triggers a Mangara. Soul's Majesty is a card that's badly needed in this deck. I saw Rishkar's expertise, but I'm thinking card draw is a little bit of a weakness that I'm seeing right now. We really haven't drawn very many cards. And when you're in green, when you're playing big stuff in green, you have like the best card draw imaginable. Soul's Majesty on anything big is like a better rate of mana to card draw than like basically anything blue has, other than like, you know, depending on how people play against Mystic Study and Mystic Remora, but in general, you know, it's 5 mana and will often draw you more than 5 cards, so that's really, really good. Here's a Hydra Broodmaster. Had to hardcast it. No Gargos in play, but it's a 7/7. Can activate the Mosswar Bridge, see what they got. Can be a little weird in that deck because most of the Hydras have X in their cost, and you can't pay the X when under the Mosswar Bridge, but there's still some that don't. Ooh, Beast Within on Attrition. All about that. All about that. Problem is, Nate's playing black. He's going to get all of his stuff back. He loves to use the graveyard, and our ground seal is gone. Probably could be like a Soul Guide Lantern or Tormod's Crypt, something like that. He did send his commanders to the command zone, which means that he doesn't have Living Death in hand yet. Oath of Legion's trigger. No attacks from Mock. A little disappointed in that, but he could have at least eaten a token, but I don't know. Next turn he'll have Trample, and it'll be 16, so that'll probably go somewhere, but the 2 white decks have 16 cards in hand combined, so likelihood that none of that is removal seems low. And plus the whole Alhammarret's Sensei's Divining Top draw engine thing happening can find more removal if needed. Beast Within our way. We deserve that. This is another board wipe? You gonna wipe the board again? This one wouldn't be as bad just because, like, we're not gonna lose anything, but our Titan should come back into play. Tapped soon. Yep, there's the Wrath of God. Next board wipe, so at least we're not getting crushed by this one. All about that life. Phyrexian Reclamation. Yeah, there's the graveyard stuff. That's no good. What's he got in the graveyard? He's got Soul's Attendant, Soul Warden, but he can send his creatures, he can send his commanders to the graveyard now, which shuts off the commander tax, which is like a big part of how you stop Krav and Regna, is either beat them quick, which we haven't done, or tax them out of the game, which, you know, now they have some out against that. Leaves a bunch of open mana. Doesn't recast anything. We get an Oath of Legion's trigger. Let's, we gotta see who's got the most lands. How many lands is that? Kithron's got a bunch of lands. He's been making land drops, so choose him. Get a forest. Phyto Titan coming back. I'm liking this thing. This thing's kind of cool. It's a creature that's, you know, less prone to board wipes. There's a Kodama's Reach also showing up a little bit late right here, but I think this turn we just kind of value a bit. Let's get Kodama's. Let's get 2 forests right here. Play one in the hand, play that one. Let's get the Serpapod. Triggers Mangara. Opponent draws 2. Let's get Galta. Equip the Galta. And let's get the Anax. It's going to leave us empty-handed. Opponents don't really have access to wheels, so we're going to need to find our own card draw, and I don't love that. I'm not sure the things we have in play are good enough to really get us there, so that's a bit concerning. Opponent says, but hey, Phyto Titan do not care. Nope, does not. Oh, that's a Dusk. Anax will trigger. Anax survives the Dusk, but we'll get a bunch of tokens out of the deal. We have 6 1/1s, but I don't know if this deck is like super well suited to be able to use those 1/1s. I'm not really feeling Anax as a card in this particular deck. I get it, like it's cheap and can be big, and it's like some amount of board wipe protection. But I think I would rather just go for something that like actually protects your creatures instead of gives you 1/1s on the backside, just because, like, you know, our creatures are big and expensive. You want to keep them in play. Crested Sunmare coming into play for opponent Well of Lost Dreams. Yeah, that's how we're going to lose this game. That might be strong enough to kind of get this game moving. It's turn 10, and everyone has like... We're at 29. We have the lowest life total, which still... That's pretty healthy for turn 10. The 2 white decks, 41 and 54, and then Mock in the middle at 35, so... Lots of damage to be done still. Tons of cards in hand. I don't love mass discard, but like this is a situation where mass discard I'd be totally fine with because people have way too much going on. Problem still though is that like Well of Lost Dreams for 2 opponents, they just draw those cards right back. Nate's gonna anguish on making the Crested Sunmare, wants no part of that. Yep, understand why. Mangara into Nate goes down to 59. Well, a Lost Dream triggers off the lifelink. Lifecrafter's Oath of Lieges. Gargos back to play. Lifecrafter's trigger. Swiftfoot Boots into play. Yeah, those are important now. A lot of removal this game. Boots onto the Gargos. Ooh, they do get a Shadow Spear into play too. It's going to be good in this game since, yeah, everyone's life total's high, so getting your own life total high is a pretty good idea. Here comes Hungering Hydra, X6. Can't be blocked by more than one creature, and when it's dealt damage, put that many counters on it, so that one will get huge pretty quickly, I imagine. Gargos into the Mangara, sure. They've been drawing cards just unchecked. They're down to 49 cards in their library. They've outdrawn 2 green decks and a white-black deck. That is surprising. Souls Warden back to play. Souls Attendant back to play. Mangara triggers. Blood Artist. Ooh, that's a good one. That's how this game will end. They get Regna back into play and crazy amounts of life gain flying off. Kithron's at 16 Commander. Just noticed that off of the Gargos attack. I think, unless we draw really big, I think we're kind of out of it, though. It's basically got to be card draw, or I don't think there's anything splashy enough in the deck, like an Insurrection type card, to really push us over the hump. Resplendent Angel, yep. Right, there's Regna, yep. So this is the closest thing to a win condition we've seen up to this point. Mangara's got some answers, though. Yep, they're going to Path. Path on the Resplendent Angel, I would have gone for the Blood Artist right there. Blood Artist is the one that's going to get you killed, because that'll essentially turn off board wipes. Regna End Step trigger, 2 tokens, triggers 2 Soul Wardens and 2 Souls Attendants. Oh boy. Well, Lost Dreams. Brings back to our turn, Oath of Lieges trigger. Assume Kithron's still making all of his land drops, and Phyto Titan trigger for us. Get a Forest. Phyto Titan. 2 more Souls Attendant triggers. Well of Lost Dreams. We draw a Skarg the Rage Pits. Meh. Play Skarg. Cool card, though. Kind of looking for the big card draw right there. Oh, man, I don't want to... So if we send all of our 1/1s into Nate, he either takes it or blocks them and loses them. Yeah, maybe we just send the 1/1s in. Anax to Kithron, these to Nate. He's going to block one with Regna, sure. Yep, start trading in the tokens. 5 Blood Artist triggers. See where he wants to point those. Might send them our way. But I would imagine the Hydras are scarier to him. No, I'm going to go for Mangara. Fearing the card draw. Makes sense. His biggest threat is probably just like continuous mass removal. Exiling his graveyard. Probably pretty scary to him also. Recast our commander. And it is going to be a bunch. I didn't activate the Skarg just because I didn't do the math beforehand to see how much it was going to be to recast our commander and get the Whisper Silk on it. But I think we still would have actually had enough. But, you know, 1/1 and trample against someone at 60 life. Probably not going to make the biggest difference on a bunch of 1/1s. Though I guess one of our tokens would have survived, but I don't know. Unless some really crazy things happen, we're in some pretty big trouble. Whisper Silk onto our commander. And pass like that. Regna trigger. Opponent's going to Field of Ruin the Strip Mine. Maybe they've got a Maria in hand. We get a land. We'll take a forest. Opponent drawing with the top, replaying the top. Yep. That has been so unbelievably strong for them. Hall of Heliod's Generosity into play. Oh, they have nasty enchantments. There's a Luminarch Ascension in the graveyard. At least the game will end. That'll end this game if they go for that. But they might take a big hit from... Actually, they can't survive another hit from Gargos right here. I don't see any unblockable on Gargos, but they do have trample in the form of this Shadow Spear. It's a green deck. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a way to pump it up somehow. Resplendent Angel from Mangara. Soul Wardens. Mesa Enchantress. Uh-oh. That's a moat. Creatures without flying can attack. Let's find out who's got removal. Suture Priest. Uh-oh. Gonna be getting into Blood Artist battles. So whenever another creature enters the battlefield under their control, they gain a life. Whenever a creature enters under an opponent's control, that player loses 1 life. Yeah, Regna can balance that out. They're gaining 2 per creature, so unless they need to shoot both Soul Wardens for that to really do much. But at least it'll slow down the rate at which they gain life, but they're still at 74, so damage needs to happen at some point here. Gargos needs to draw into like a Beast Within to shoot the moat just to even really be able to do much. They've got the Abundance, though, so Abundance for non-land You know, if they hit a creature, they play a creature, they can draw Abundance again, and, you know, maybe find their way into something. Soul Ring into play. They've already used Beast Within, so Krosan Grip, probably the next most likely. Maybe a Rex Sage or something like that. There's a Serra Ascendant. Soul's Attendant, Suture Priest. Opponent's gonna Serene Offering, destroy enchantment. You gain life equal to its mana cost. That's pretty cool. On the Phyrexian Reclamation. That's a good way to slow Nate down. Archon of Absolution, pro-white, flying. Creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures, so... Whew, another Ghostly Prison style thing. Soul's Attendant, Suture Priest. Yep. Skull Clamp for Mangara. 12 cards in hand, 33 cards left in their library. They've done so much. So much. Resplendent Angel, Regna, all triggering. Soul's Attendant, Suture Priest, more mono-white triggers, just the mono-white triggers game. Well, I guess Nate's not playing mono-white, but the white card's doing a lot of the work in his deck right now. Just the value. The value. We're basically in a loop of, like, every time someone has a life gain trigger, both of their Well of Lost Dreams continue to trigger. Oy. Lifecrafter's Scry trigger. Here's a Rishkar's Expertise for the Gargos. Both white players tapped out, so I think this will resolve. This, if they have the removal, so they've got Abundance, which will give them, you know, that'll skip them past the lands, so 6 cards of pure gas could get them to the removal they need to take down this moat. So far I've got Prey Upon, Hunter's Prowess, Whiptongue Hydra. It destroys flyers. That's not awful. Doesn't just win the game, though. Zendikar Resurgent, more card draw. Shared Summons. That searches for creatures. If they have a Rex Sage, they could go for that. Return of the Wild Speaker draws more cards. Yeah, these are a lot of cards I'd like to get into this deck. The card draw, any of the card draw equal to power, this deck is going to want, because we have big lopsided creatures with lots of power. So that's going to be one of my recommended changes, which we'll talk about when we get to the end. Opponent hits. So opponent's got a lot of redraws in here. Theoretically should be able to find some removal. Hopefully take down Mangara, and then we can try to gang up on Nate. We'll see what happens. He's still got a lot of stuff happening. There's the Hunter's Prowess. Yep. Still needs... Can't attack, though. Oh, but he can fight stuff. Okay, yeah, I see what he's going for. He's going to fight down the Serra Ascendant, sure. Blood Artist, Well of Lost Dreams will trigger. Zendikar Resurgent into play. Dump small creatures and look for Rex Sage. Well, they have the shared summons. If they have Rex Sage, they can go get it. Return of the Wild Speaker. Yep. Sky Shroud claim for opponent. There's the Krosan Grip. Moat going down. There's a 12 power Gargos in play. Opponent can block, though. They could just, like, throw everything in front. Here comes a Mistcutter Hydra X6. Yeah. Zendikar Resurgent will trigger. Suture Priest, Soul Ward, and Soul's Attendant, and that'll trigger some Well of Lost Dreams. Opponent tapped out all their mana. I think they might be sad when they realize that there's an Archon in play. Oh, Whiptongue Hydra. Never mind. They've got it covered. To clear out the flyers, there are a bunch of them at this moment. The Archon, an Angel, and Resplendent Angel for Mangara, and then Regna for Nate. That one looks like it has wings. Doesn't actually fly, though. Also, Whiptongue Hydra will be huge. Soul's Attendant, Suture Priest continue to trigger. Oh, I was just doing this math here. So with Zilortha in play, as I understand it, it only takes 2 to trample over Mangara, 0 on the Enchantress, and 1 on the Suture Priest. So I was thinking that they had enough toughness to block and stop the commander damage, but I don't think they actually will because of Zilortha. Blood Artist triggers a couple times. Nate's up to 88. No big deal. Well of Lost Dreams. Regna does go down, though, and that shuts his draw engine down. Goes back to the command zone. It's going to be costly to recast that, so I think it's going to be on 10. That's a good portion of the turn. Opponent plays a land, hasn't made their land drop yet. Sylvan Library for opponent, sure. They also drew a bunch. 17 cards in hand. As far as I can tell, they still have a max hand size. Still casting more stuff. Protean Hydra coming into play. X6. So much cost reduction. Zendikar Resurgent. Lifecrafters will trigger. Hydra's going on a big attack. Gargos into Kithron, and the other 2 into Nate. So we get to see if my theory is correct here with the Zilortha and the combat damage. This will block a total of 3, which will still be lethal. Yep, opponent goes down, takes 25 commander damage. Opponent's going to draw a million more off the Hunter's Prowess. Kind of getting into mill range. They'll draw 12. Oh my. They have to abundance every one of these. Do you just draw all the lands and dump all the lands? Looks like what they're doing. Just about. Maybe not. Reveals a greater good. That card is ridiculous. Probably a great card for this deck. Ooh, yeah, actually a really good card for this deck. They're getting a little pricey, though. I think they're about 10 when I looked between turns a little while ago. Was checking out some options for the deck. But yeah, Greater Good's going to be a really good card draw since you're talking about creatures with lopsided power. Opponent's got 26 cards in hand, 29 in the library. Oh, where's a windfall when you need it? Not going to be any windfalls this game. Now they get to discard down to 7 cards in hand. Kit said he had Replenish and Approach in his hand. Yep. Said he had no problem drawing cards. Yeah, we saw. Opponent said they'd donate some cards my way. If they could, of all the stuff they drew. Yeah, we're feeling the lack of card draw a bit. Here comes Krav into play. Dictate of Erebos. That's a real card. Yep, Krav's in play now, so they've got a sack outlet. Yeah, they can just wipe our board. I'm sure that's about to happen. So, he sacks all his tokens, gonna draw a million cards, Dictate's gonna trigger a million times, yeah. The good news is we'll actually get a bunch of triggers off of Anax. We won't have complete nothing, but the tokens just, I don't know. This deck isn't really suited to token battle, so, you know, I don't think the tokens are overly useful unless the board's, like, truly wiped and it was the player, like, right before you that did it. No one else had a chance to rebuild yet, but even then, they're just 1/1s, so it's like, eh. There's a bunch of Dictate triggers. Sacrifice our commander. Still get the Anax trigger. Oh, actually. Oh, we may. I don't know. I don't know about the math right here, but we may have been able to save our commander. Should have went for the Phytohydra first. Yep, send it back to the command zone. Blood Artist triggers. We may die to Blood Artist triggers. Well, we may not die right here, but it's going to put us really low. And the game has crashed. Yep, I thought that might happen. There's definitely, like, a limit to the number of triggers that can go off in an MTGO game. Well, that was disappointing, but yeah, I don't think we were going to win. We couldn't keep anything in play. Our only real chance at all was if we got Rishkar's expertise off the top with the Phyto Titan back to play, and like that, you know, we just need to draw cards just to even have things to do. But I don't think the deck is quite explosive enough to even really recover from the position we were in, so let's take a look at this deck list. This was a rather long game on the order of almost 3 hours. Surprising that I've had 2 of these in the last, like, couple weeks. But anyway, so this game was unusually removal heavy. I don't think that's kind of the norm for most of the Commander that I see now. Control decks, while they still exist, I think there's just so much incentive to do proactive things with most Commanders now that you don't see tons and tons of control. So, you know, the idea is like, wipe the board once, slow the game down a little bit, and then do your thing, usually. In general, you don't see the repeated wipes, but, you know, with like Black-White Aristocrats, yeah, you will see Dictate of Erebos type stuff that'll keep you in a constant lockdown, and that certainly needs to be answered. Anyway, there's a few things that I think I saw that, one, a lot of the creatures in the deck only do damage, and in general, some amount of do damage creatures are good, but you want additional value off those creatures as well. Like, think Atali and Inferno Titan. They both do good damage, but they also give you other stuff. Inferno Titan being removal for stuff, Atali giving you extra cards, on top of the fact that they also hit pretty hard. So, those are really good examples of things that I might add into this deck. Stared at it all game. We had the Anax. Anax really not doing anything for me in this deck. We definitely need more card draw. Maybe it was just maybe it was a matter we just didn't find the card draw we wanted, but there's a Colossal Majesty and Elemental Bond. Those are going to be great in this deck, I think. Any of the power-based card draw we want. So I looked it up. Garrick is like $2 or $3 right now, which is surprisingly cheap. Thought he would have been a little bit more than that. So let's get him in there. Soul's Majesty, Return to Wild Speaker. Soul's Majesty, I think, is pretty cheap. You could also go Return to Wild Speaker, more or less same card, a little bit more utility on return, but same general idea. I like Rebel Belt a little bit better just because it's got haste. Haste is always good. Vithian Renegades, can't destroy an artifact on the way in, a little bit of removal, never hurt anyone. Still a little bit heavy on 3 drops, probably want some things that are just a bit stronger. The deck actually doesn't have a Cultivate, I would definitely add a Cultivate in there. It does have Kodama's Reach, though. So when you're talking about red and green, there's obviously like just a ton of really good creatures we could talk about adding. Like I said, I think this deck really wants an Atali. Moonveil Dragon is okay. Like, pumping your stuff up is not terrible, but generally it's a little bit more token-based. I'm actually going to get rid of Garrick's Pack Leader. Like, it's not awful, it's not the worst thing, but in a game like this where there's a lot of removal, it's not the best either because it's not going to stick long enough to actually do the things you want it to do. It comes down at a weird point. Like, 5 mana is kind of a lot for that effect, and it gets a little bit awkward. We've got Elemental Bond, which is essentially the same idea, but more sturdy in the form of an enchantment, so I like that. Been looking at this Bloodfire Enforcers. It's just damage. Like, it's got trample and first strike if you have a thing in the graveyard, but I don't know. That's like a lot of stuff. Yeah, this 5/1 also, yeah. So I think there's a few things we can get rid of here. Conifer Strider, 5/1 Hexproof, not doing much for me. And also the Vine Mare, not really a super exciting card. Gigapede actually looks interesting because you can bring it back if you need to. I do like that. Lay of the Land, I'm not sold on. That's going to be a Cultivate right there, so let's add in a Cultivate. Now, I think we could also use a Sky Shroud Claim as well, or Explosive Vegetation, whichever you have on hand. But, some sort of 4-mana ramp 2 is always going to be good. But some other things I wanted to see in the deck. I wanted to see more removal. Like, we weren't able to answer our opponent's value engines, and that was super problematic. So one of the cards that I think I really like for this deck is Sarkhan's Triumph. This is repeatable removal in the form of an enchantment and triggers off your commander. Also, the big mode triggers off your commander, so that's going to be 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. Pretty cool. I think that one's going to be sweet. I was also thinking about, and, this may actually be even like a little too mean, but, if you're facing like dictates and things like that, maybe not. Pyrohemia actually looks pretty interesting because as long as your commander's in play, your stuff should have pretty high toughness. Now, if your commander's not in play, it may get less good, and that's certainly a thing to consider. But I think in general, as repeatable removal, I think Pyrohemia is going to be pretty cool. Can make it pretty one-sided. So definitely into all of that. And what was the final card I talked about? Subterranean Tremor is actually more expensive than I thought. I think it was like $6 or $7 when I was looking through stuff. But I still think it's really good for this deck. Not many artifacts in this deck. And the fact that it blows up 2 permanent types is really good. Like, if you just ramp for your first 4 to 5 turns and get lands into play, people are trying to get their creatures out, they're trying to get their mana rocks out, and you just go Subterranean X4, you get rid of all their creatures, you get rid of all their mana rocks, and then they are hurting. Now, I have dropped the creature count maybe a little bit further than I was hoping to do, so let's see if we can bring that back up just a touch. See if we can fill some roles that are in creature form. I feel like we can live without this Far Wanderings. Like, I think a lot of the time it's going to be 3 mana, get 1. Sure, late in the game you might be able to get 3 with it, which is cool, but it's the early game I'm worried about a little bit. A card you could add to this deck, I'm not saying you have to, but it might make sense, is Dolmen Gate. And this will kind of help if your commander's not in play. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. So, your creatures are low toughness if your commander's not in play, so that might be a nice backup option. I'm not going to add it here just because I'm already struggling with what to cut, but probably need to come down a 5-drop. What's Thicket Elemental do? Thicket Elemental's okay, maybe a little unreliable, but seems fine. Basically just get an extra creature. Yeah, there's better ways to go about that effect. I should point out that, like, green has so many good cards that there are many different ways you can go with this deck. Like, if you just jammed, like, I don't know, Sunbird's Invocation and Lurking Predators in the deck, crazy things will happen. Those are really strong cards. Certainly a thing you could do. Throw a Wild Pair in here for good measure. Don't know if the creatures are at all balanced out for that, but, one of the things we're missing, too, is we're just missing a way to get things back. Some ability to use the graveyard. I'm going to get rid of this Rebel Belt Rioters. It's not doing that much for me. The Sunder Shaman, it's a little bit slower, but it's repeatable if it sticks. I do like that. It's also a 5/5, a little bit more valuable in combat. A 3/2 is still, it's a 3/2, unless you, like, jam equipments on it. It's not, like, super helpful, so, like, maybe you blow something up and then you just use it as a chump blocker. It's fine, but it's not the most exciting thing. I continue to drop the creature count, so let's see if we can straighten that out a bit. Terror of the Peaks is a pretty crazy looking card. I don't know if they're expensive, but a little bit. I guess the set hasn't actually come out yet, so I'm filming this. It's still on M21. But in the sake of getting cool things in creature form, maybe a little bit expensive. I don't know what the budget is for changes in this deck, but it's certainly going to be good when you have a bunch of creatures with super high power on them. It's also got flying, which is nice, so all good stuff right there. Certainly a card to look at. There's a couple things I wanted to see in this deck. I wanted to see something big and explosive. The card I had in mind is Mob Rule. This is going to be really good once the board gets clogged up, much like it was all game in this game, so you can easily take at least one player out with Mob Rule, so I really like that. Thinking about even a Molten Primordial kind of fits the theme of lopsided power. also gives you a little bit more of that effect. It's a 7-drop, so I get it. It's a little bit expensive. Maybe you need to cut a 7-drop if you're adding that in. Siege Behemoth gives you Super Trample, and there's a Zendikar Resurgent, great card. Is Rage Beast good enough? Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature fights target creature. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. If it sticks, I could see that being a problem. Creature count has come down some. How can we get it back up? It looks like counterspells might actually be a problem in this meta. I'm seeing Serpapod, Domri, Red Elemental Blast, and Guttural Response. So tells me that they're probably running into some blue. Another thing you could look at too, you could look at like Wild Ricochets, Dual Caster Mage, stuff like that. Things that are good against like a big spell, a Cyclonic Rift, stuff like that. But there's a lot of ways to go about that too. I think I'm out on the Spite Bellows. I love Spite Bellows, but without your commander in play, it's not great. We saw it here. Like, it does run into that situation of against a board wipe, doesn't do that much for you. But it does create some interesting incentives on the board, but I think that's going to be a great... choose a Tali, choose a Inferno Titan, take your pick. One of the two. They're both really good. If you want a really good lopsided power creature, thinking like Hellkite Tyrant. It's a 6/5. They're not the cheapest thing. I think they're like $8 to $10 last I looked. Not the cheapest thing ever, but still pretty good. Card I wouldn't mind seeing in the deck is Ronas Monument. Cost reduction for your green creatures, and will pump your stuff, which is cool. Some things that I still think we're missing, and this is going to take a little bit of tinkering. It's going to be your double strike and your double combats. That's how you're really going to get over the top with this deck. Maybe even like a Black Blade Reforged, because it's just good. Your commander has trample. It's got 7 power already, so like you can really cut down the number of hits that are needed with something like that. I actually think with some of the removal we added, like Starstorm isn't the most necessary anymore. I think Subterranean Tremors, Pyrohemia, Sarkhan's Unsealing, and Chandra's Ignition, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Feel good about that. We can use that slot to get another creature back in. Ideally, I'd like to see more 2-drops also. I think I'm out on the Renegades right here. Cool, interesting card, but just don't think it's well-suited enough to what we're doing. A card that we definitely needed this game and is just good most of the time that it ever sees play is Bane of Progress. So let's get that in there. I think that's going to be some much-needed removal. Kind of replaces the little spot removal guy we took out. And there's any number of, like, any of the multiple destroy artifact and enchantment cards in red and green are going to be good. We have a Decimate right here, totally fine. You could also look at, like, a Hull Breach if you needed to, if you wanted to. I feel like a lot of games aren't going to go as crazy as this one got, but... Let's get another creature back into the deck. Maybe getting a little bit heavy on the curve. Thinking about some nice 4-drops. Sirach might be nice. A ramp creature could also be nice. We're still light at 2 mana. Ground Seal is probably a meta call. It wasn't doing that much for me. I'd probably go Tormod's Crypt or Soul Guide Lantern instead. I get that it has a redraw on it, but there's a lot of things that it doesn't hit, and I always talk about I like my removal to hit everything, so... You crack a Soul Guide Lantern, it's just going to get the graveyards, and anything that's in there is going away, so... I'm just going to add a Sarkora Tribe Elder right here. I think this deck does want more things at 2 mana, trying to get the creature count up, and that's a perfect marriage of both. Just because this video is running super long already, I don't want to spend all day editing the deck and making changes, but I think those are the main things. Get the Subterranean Tremors in, make sure we can blow away artifacts. Get a Bane of Progress in there, make sure we can blow away artifacts and enchantments. That was the big thing coming up this game. The other thing was our lack of card draw, and there were actually some card draw options in the deck. We had a few, we just missed them all, which was terrible. So I've added a bunch more, and you can kind of play around with that. I may have added too many. You could certainly cut one of them. Yeah, maybe that's fine. I'd probably, because you really want to hit one of those. But then you've also got Great Henge, Zendikar Resurgent, also great. So anyway, I think most of the creature choices are pretty good. It was a couple in like the 4 mana slot that just like, they do damage, but they don't really generate much value other than that. So those are the ones that I wanted to get rid of. You do need to be generating value. That was kind of the problem we ran into, is just, we ran out of cards, ran out of things to do. We added some more like repeatable sources of removal with Sarkhan's Unsealing, and just, sources of creature removal. I think I did cut about 5 creatures from the deck, which was more than I was hoping to. I was hoping to keep the creature count just a teeny bit higher, but... Oh, one card I forgot. Just a few other things real quick. I talked about a bunch during the game. Hameware Battlements, just cleaning up the lands a little bit. Really want some haste. Haste may have been able to at least eliminate some players much quicker in this game. So get Hameware Battlements, get Flamekin Village. Honestly, I don't think this deck really needs Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse. You've got green and a ton of things that search for cards, so just mulligan until there's a green and something that finds a land in your hand. So we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of the Terramorphic Expanse. And now we've got some haste on our lands. I really like that. You can add them a Kokoro if you wanted to also. One that's missing, Kessig Wolfrun. Just a nice card to have around also. I'll take that over the Kazandu Refuge. Yeah, I'll take it over the Kazandu Refuge. Well, Guildgate's a little bit worse, but take that over the Guildgate. Anyway, I think that should do it for now. There's still a few more things that I would do if I were going to spend more time on this. Extra combats, double strike, find something that's going to really drop the hammer and allow you to close the game out. We've got more haste in there, so at least if you have to keep recasting stuff, you can do that. I think we were the victim of just a lot of removal in this game, and that will happen sometimes, and you can't always prevent that. We didn't catch the card draw the way we would have wanted to, even though there was some in the deck, so I've added more. I think any of the power-based card draw, you want all of it. It's just going to be so good with your commander. When your commander has 7 power, that's an easy draw 7. Oh, by the way, add a Reliquary Tower. That's another one, but anyway, wrap it up right there. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching. I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. If you're planning to buy Commander cards, be sure to use the TCG affiliate player link as it helps support the channel and it doesn't cost you anything.